Hello there, Shortcuts. This is Stephen here with the 28th shortlist for 2025. This list is all Japanese presses, and all of them are $35. That is it. I'll run through this list. If you would like to be on the price list for Shortcuts, drop me an email at shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. So as I said, everything here is $35. The price list will go out this Wednesday, which is the 30th of July at 9 p.m. Sydney time, as always. First come, first serve. If you like the sound of these, you better get ready to reply quickly. I think these are going to go pretty fast when you see what's here for $35 each. All right, here we go. I'm going to start with this. This is the Japanese first press of Deep Purple in Rock. This is the hard cardboard gatefold of the classic kind of Mark II lineup: Speed King, Bloodsucker, Child in Time, which often became a 20-30 minute behemoth when they played it live, into the Firefly the Rat, which I really like, Living Wreck, and Hard Loving Man, and there they are, the Mount Rushmore. This is post that psychedelic, more progressive sound period. This is the classic Mark II lineup with Ian Gillan and Roger Glover and Blackmore, of course. And this set the stage for the really heavier direction to come. And it is pretty unrelenting. And in fact, it bears some, I guess, it's a cousin to the record that's going to kick off the classic rock list. And I'm going to give you a preview of it here because there's a second list, which is this, the Japanese first press of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I think undoubtedly Sabbath are the archetypal heavy metal band, but Deep Purple were kind of in the mix, and a lot of Deep Purple fans would consider this to be as much of a cornerstone of hard rock history than anything Sabbath did. This album was a huge success. It was engineered by Martin Birch, who also engineered some later Sabbath stuff as well. So, yeah, interesting. And I always kind of find it funny that Ian Gillan was recording this record and Jesus Christ Superstar at the same time. What a legend. Now, the classic Mark II lineup reformed in the 80s for another interesting run of Deep Purple records, starting with, was it Perfect Strangers? And this, which I don't think I've ever had before. This is the Japanese first press of Deep Purple House of Blue Light. Blackmore, Gillan, Glover, Lord, Pace. There's that classic lineup once more. This is obviously a little bit more modern sound. It's got more keyboard textures, but it's still pretty raw in places. I remember I first got this record out because my local library in Dungannon in County Tyrone, Northern Ireland, where I was brought up, you could get cassettes as well as books, and so my mum would allow me to get some cassettes as well. And I remember getting this, and I still remember Bad Attitude and The Unwritten Law and those tracks. I was still pretty excited by them. Now, this one obviously not as big a success as Deep Purple in Rock, but I think still pretty interesting. And it charted really well in the US and the UK. Yeah, kind of interesting. All right, I've got some Shortcuts royalty all the way through this list. And I'm going to start with this one, which is the Japanese first press of Carole King, Tapestry. Now, last count, I think this is third on the list. First is MJ Thriller. Second is the Otis Redding 2LP Best Of, which is just astonishing. And this is third, the Carole King Tapestry. Again, hard cardboard gatefold. But part of the reason this is so popular, it's got a beautiful, warm, tender, soulful sound. But you can see that the insert, can you see that? The centerfold is inserted into the record, but it actually is a tapestry. And it is genuinely beautiful. And it's got images of the band in the studio kind of intertwined. And interestingly, on the back are the lyrics, which is unusual for Japan, and that's the original NM Records, first press, AML 96. It is Shortcuts royalty for a reason, and $35. Now, were these two records released the same year? Yeah, same year. Not quite Shortcuts royalty, more because this record is actually really hard to find in good condition. But you'll notice also on the NM green label, also that hard cardboard gatefold. This is Teaser and the Firecat by Cat Stevens. Now this is also a hard cardboard gatefold and has the similar kind of internal mechanics. Now, this record's really interesting. I think I've only had this, I just checked through the numbers earlier. I've only had it 3 or 4 times. Now, one of them's on my shelf alongside my UK first press of this, and I do plan to do an A/B on that at some point to determine which is actually better. But in the same vein as Tapestry, this record exudes warmth, gentleness, but this one has more what I would call spiritual curiosity than Tapestry, which tends to kind of be more about, tapping into the subtle side of human emotion. And this is more acoustic led, subtle, complex singer-songwriter review of philosophy and your time on Earth. And it's really interesting. Top charts all around the world. Peace Train, a classic. Morning is Broken, of course. One of the best-selling albums of the era. Actually, I'm not sure which is better selling between this and Tapestry. I suppose it probably is Tapestry. Anyway, Cat Stevens, Peace Train became, again, kind of like an anthem for those who were, following causes, and it is an anti-war song, so it's kind of interesting. I like it. Anyway, now I've got 2 records here that are also kind of linked, but not in ways that you might imagine. So I'm going to show this. Now, this, I think, is the first time I've ever had this. This is the Japanese first press, again, hard cardboard gatefold, of the band's 4th album, Cahoots, from 1971. This one with the original capital pink obi. This is the 5, look at them, 5 guys, I suppose, scruffy, Dylan-esque virtuosos from Canada and the deep American South. And by this point, they had already gone a good way down reshaping American rock music with Music from the Big Pink and the self-titled album, which I think are their 2 certified classics. If you don't have those in your collection, please speak to me, because they're truly counterculture royalty, like really special. I like the insert here. This is kind of the lyrics in a really interesting setting, but they also have this kind of quirky little insert here as well. which has got, kind of like a more of a history of the band. It's quite a heavy record. This is moodier, definitely moodier, a little bit more fragmented than the earlier records, but still produced some amazing tunes like Life is a Carnival with Alan Toussaint's horns really to the fore. He kind of has his fingerprints all over this record and lends the record this melancholic, almost kind of apocalyptic tone. Rick Danko and Richard Manuel still remain two of the greatest kind of world-weary singers ever. I love it. It's great. I think this is their last great album. After this, it really started to kind of come off the rails a little bit. But yeah, really, really like it. This is the, in some ways, their most Dylan-esque record as well. And that's kind of interesting because there are kind of parts of this that Dylan still had his fingerprints on. Anyway, I really like that record. And the link, which I think you might find a bit of a leap, but I hope not, is to this record, which is Elton John's Tumbleweed Connection. Again, a Japanese pressing. This has been super popular over the years, again, for all sorts of reasons. It's a great record, but this is where Elton John sounds like the band. I mean, he really, really does. This is the most kind of band-esque that he ever did. This kind of Americana trip that he went on in 1970. What's amazing, this came out right about the same time as a lot of those classic band records. But man, yeah, Elton John was on fire with Tumbleweed Connection. Give a listen if you haven't done it. $35. All right, I have a little run of Stones records here. All of these are 35, but I'm going to start off with one that I have. I think this might also be its first appearance on the list. It's certainly not being a Shortcuts regular by any means. These two have been, and maybe I'll show you these two first, and then we'll look at the kind of the interesting one. This is the Japanese first press hard cardboard gatefold of my favorite live rock and roll album, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. This is the record where Mick Taylor joined the band and is on absolute fire. I freaking love this album. 1970, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Carole, Stray Cat Blues, Love in Vain, Midnight Rambler. Man. And then the second side, Sympathy for the Devil, Live With Me, Little Queenie, Honky Tonk Women, and Street Fighting Man. It's absolutely crazy. You look at the contemporary reviews of this record. At the time, Lester Bangs, who is up there with Robert Christgau and others, is the greatest music critic of all time. He loved this album. He regularly wrote about this. He described it as the best rock concert ever put on record. I think it's just absolutely brilliant, and I love this Japanese press. Again, it's the same one I have on mine. And normally it's 40, but on this list it will be $35. The $35 list. I only do this a few times a year, so it's good to dip into it. This is the Japanese first press of easily the best Rolling Stones album of the 80s and 90s. This is Tattoo You. Why? Well, because they re-recorded songs that they wrote in their classic late 60s, early 70s period. This is polished nuggets from that, redone, a lot of it by Jagger by himself. I mean, it's incredible. Side A, Hang Fire, Slave, Little TNA, it's just pure swagger. But side 2, Worried About You and Heaven, you will hear Exile on Main Street. You'll hear a little bit of Sticky Fingers. Of course, you've got Start Me Up and others. Really, really fine record. And, tell me what record from the 80s and 90s was better than that. I don't know. maybe even the 2000s. You know, maybe it is the best record since they've ever done in the 80s, 90s up till now. I don't know. It's right up there. But the one that I wanted to highlight that I haven't had was much earlier. This is the US release that got a Japanese press. It is 12 by 5. Now, this is the Rolling Stones from 1964. So this is covering Chuck Berry's Round and Round, for example. This is covering Bobby Womack's It's All Over Now. This is, but it also, and, you know, Creedence Clearwater, Susie Q, but this also has some really amazing songwriting chops coming out of Jagger Richards. You've got the likes of Good Times, Bad Times. You've got Congratulations, Grown Up Wrong. This is when it really starts to happen for the Stones. Andrew Loog Oldham wrote a little sleeve note. I like to think of the Rolling Stones first as friends, secondly as artists. It's been my pleasure to have a great personal rapport with this group, and working with them has made business a pleasure. The best they've ever done, except for the one that they're about to make. And man, did they make some great records. Now this is you know, kind of interesting because at this point the Beatles were still, you know, kind of doing 3-chord rock and roll and kind of testing out their rock and roll chops as well. You can hear the blues and the R&B kind of side of the Stones right from the start, and that makes it a really interesting record, and one that if you play loud gives a lot of pleasure indeed. All right, now I think this is probably the bargain of the list. This is the Japanese first press of Split Enz Metal Notes. I've been talking about this record a lot over the last while because I've had some Aussie presses. Now this is also a gatefold, and look at that incredible image of the band. I think that is absolutely amazing. Fantastic record, and a hugely underrated record still. I love it to bits. I'm going to keep pushing it. I think it's great. Metal Notes, a whimsical, dark, weird, squirmy record. How they got from here to Crowded House is pretty wild. And you know what? I love it. I think it's great. I think that the more I listen to early Split Enz, the more I think that they must have been early Roxy Music fans. And they must have been. It is the only touchstone that I can think of. All right. I also have on this list Hugh Cornwall from the Stranglers, his favourite Stranglers record. This is their third album, 1978. Black and White. The Stranglers. This is icy art punk of the highest caliber. Angular, philosophical, relentless, minimalist in places. The white side and the black side. The white side, the more traditional kind of punk structures. The black side, drawing on almost, you know, literary references. There's Japanese existential literature. There's goth. There's everything about this band that meant that they had a career that went for decades, because they were and are a great group. It was critically divisive at the time. There were some people who just thought, oh, masterpiece, and there were others who went, whoa, what the hell? I don't know. I think it's sharp. I think it's sinister. I love the synths. I think it's great. All right, this record needs no introduction. Another $35 classic. This is Rubber Soul by the Beatles, 1965. Is it reasonable to say that this is when the Beatles grew up? This is a great record. Now, this, and I've got this record at 35, but I have pretty much the whole suite: Revolver, White Album, Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper, all the way on the classic list, on the classic rock list to come. All of them from the 1976 Country Flag series that the Japanese pressed, amongst one of my favorite series of records of all time. It is really fun listening to these records on great Japanese vinyl, and that is Rubber Soul. Okay, a few more to go. Most of these I think you will recognize, but still, it's fun to go through these. Again, I don't have this on the list that often because it's super hard to find really nice Japanese copies. It's really, really well held. This is the Police Synchronicity, 1983. I guess arguably their creative peak, but also, of course, where the band just fell apart. Tensions were high already, but somehow that pressure forged this ambitious, kind of weirdly genre-defying record. Again, I really like this Japanese press. I've got all of the Police on Japanese vinyl. I really like how it sounds, how the bass tone on these Japanese presses just kind of, I like it. I would say though that this is probably personally my least favorite Police record. I mean, it is bold, literate, kind of the recording quality is outrageous. It's very tightly wound. I find it a very tense listen. Still scooped up bucket load of Grammys, and I don't know. I think it's incredibly well regarded to this day, and it's got that little known tune, "Every Breath You Take." Now, this one is a record I like a lot more. In fact, I like all of these to come. This is something that you might not know. This is El Chicano Celebration. Now, this is 1972. El Chicano came out of Los Angeles, and they were that coming up through that Santana-influenced period where you could lace Latin funk, rock, and soul together. And this is a really vibrant, distinctive party album. I love it. I've had a few copies. People have come and grabbed them before they've ever made it onto the list. This is organ-led jams. It's got great cover versions. The cover version of Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl is amazing. I think just wonderful kind of Hammond organ-led funk Latin soul mix. It's just great. All right, 3 more to go. I am going to go here next. This is Solid State Survivor by Yellow Magic Orchestra. Often voted the greatest modern rock album by a Japanese artist, albeit it is not. It is more, there is no doubt this is closer to craft work than anything else. Another great cover version in this record, the Beatles' Day Tripper, covered in a completely genre-defying way. Really interesting computerized beats, very warm synth arrangements. Hugely successful in Japan. I mean massive. And maybe a cult hit elsewhere. $35, that's the first press plus Obi. All right, 2 to go. We have Select by Kim Wilde, which is still in the crates and reducing the price. It still has that wonderful poster. I'm going to have to show it again. I think it's great. She's so glamorous on the sleeve, and yet the poster has this emo Kim Wilde vibe. It's pretty special. That's Select by Kim Wilde. It has a track on here called Cambodia that I actually think is pretty cool. And then finally, my favorite record from this list is this. It is Penguin Cafe Orchestra. This is from 1981, founded by Simon Jeffries, produced by Simon Jeffries. Penguin Cafe Orchestra are kind of a little bit unlike anything that you might know. Kind of part chamber music, part folk, definitely ambient. We're talking mandolin, cellos, harmoniums, pianos. It is joyful. It is slightly odd. It's on the Egg Records, which I'm pretty sure are on the UK, where it was the label that Eno released all of his records. But it's got these fantastic things. Look at this. The art print of Penguin Cafe Orchestra. This has a series of illustrations for each of the songs with little stories. So, for example, at the last point of picnic, my ears had filled up. This picnic is dedicated to Simon Jeffries, and you've got penguins around a campfire. This is great. That's it on the label. There you have it. Every one of these will be $35 on Wednesday's list. Be ready to press the button, because I think some of these are going to go pretty quick. All right, there you have it. The $35 list. If you would like to be on the price list for this, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com, or put me a comment on YouTube and I'll figure it out how to get you on the list. Watch out for the next list. Has some absolute crackers in it. But there you go, $35 or less. And thank you if you've made it this far. Please like, subscribe, leave me a comment. And I will talk to you all in a few minutes for the second list of this week's Shortcuts price list. Bye.